wherever you're comfortable, if you'll face me and raise your right hand to be sworn. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. If you'll follow the bailiff now to the ramp, please watch your step. And then just go ahead, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. The microphone in front of you is fully adjustable. You may proceed.
Sir, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Beg your pardon?
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Ricky Navarro, Ricky Navarro.
And where are you employed, sir?
I'm a forensic print analyst for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been a forensic print specialist for the Sheriff's Office?
November of this year will be 21 years with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office.
And were you a print specialist for other agencies?
Yes, ma'am.
And for what agency?
From September of 1969 to February of 1977, I worked for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Washington, D.C., in the fingerprint section. From March 1st of 1977 to November 1st of 2001, I worked for the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, Latent Evidence Section, Crime Laboratory in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I retired from before I came down here.
And what do you do as a latent print specialist?
I examine fingerprint evidence submitted by our crime scene technicians or law deputies to determine if those latent prints are of value for comparison purposes. Does that latent print contain a sufficient amount of information that I would be able to either identify or eliminate the contributor of that print? If that print is of quality for comparison purposes, then I will compare those prints to known sets of inked impressions and either eliminate an individual or identify an individual as being the contributor of that latent print.
Now, during your career as a latent print specialist, have you received specific training for identifying prints?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And have you had, during your career, the occasion to qualify or testify as an expert witness in latent prints specialty?
In state and federal court, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida, I've qualified as an expert in excess of 500 times.
Your Honor, the state will tender the witness.
Mr. Summers, any questions of this witness regarding his experience?
No, I accept. Thank you.
All right, you may proceed.
Sir, is it possible for a person to touch one object and leave a print, but then touch a different type of an object and not leave a print?
Yes, it is possible to touch an object and leave a print, or touch an object and not leave a print. On the palmar surface of the hands and soles and toes of the feet, you have skin that is different from the skin on any other part of your body. It's got raised areas called friction ridges. Inside these friction ridges are sweat pores. There's approximately 2,700 sweat pores per square inch. They're constantly secreting body fluids, sweat, perspiration, salts, amino acids. When the hand comes in contact with another object, you make a transfer of those chemicals from the hands to the object that is being touched. Now, if a person was to go into the bathroom and wash their hands really well, dry them, come back out, and those hands haven't had time to either become contaminated or the sweat pores haven't had time to extrude the sweat, perspiration, you can actually touch something and not leave a fingerprint because you don't have anything on your hands to make the transfer. the condition of the item that is being touched has something to do with the print being able to be identified or retrieved. For example, you take a Coke can out of a container, you put it in the refrigerator. Later on, that print was on that can when it went into the refrigerator. Later that day, you take that Coke can out and you set it on the table. Condensation builds up on that Coke can. The latent print is made up of 98.5 to 99.5% water. Water in the condensation, once that condensation evaporates away, it takes the fingerprint with it. So there's a lot of reasons you can touch something and not leave a print, or touch something and not leave an identifiable print.
And sir, do two people have the same prints?
It's never been found that two individuals have the same print. It's never been found that one individual has the same print on two different fingers. Each fingerprint is unique to each fingerprint itself.
So the fingerprint on your thumb would be different than, say, the fingerprint on your pinky finger?
That's correct.
Okay. And what about your palm prints? Are those also different than your other palm print on the other hand?
Palm prints are unique to themselves. It's never been found that two individuals, separate individuals, have the same palm print.
What are you looking for when trying to identify a latent print to then compare to a known print?
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to examine the latent print, and I'm going to try to gather all the information I can from that latent print. First, does it have a pattern type? There are three basic pattern types in a finger. There's arches, loops, and whorls. An arch is where the ridge detail enters on one side of the finger, goes toward the center, makes a slight rise, and exits the opposite side from which it enters. A loop is a ridge that enters on one side, goes toward the center of the finger, recurves, and goes back out the same side it entered. It could enter from the right or the left. A whorl is like a bullseye target. The ridges go in a circular motion. Those are the three basic pattern types. So when I'm looking at a latent print, I want to see what pattern type it is. Can I determine the pattern type? Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot determine the pattern type of the print. Next thing I want to do is I want to note the ridge flow. How, again, is the ridges entering from the left, recurving and going out again to the left. And the whorl, I want to know what the ridge flow is on the whorl. Once I've made that determination and that I know that that print is of sufficient quantity and quality for comparison purposes, then I will take the fingerprint card, and let's say I'm looking for a loop type pattern that has the ridges coming in on the left and exiting on the left. I'm going to visually examine the fingerprint card to see if there are any ridge detail making that type of pattern and has that ridge flow. Once I find a finger that is consistent in pattern type and ridge flow, then I start looking for the unique identifiable characteristics in the fingerprint. There are 5 basic unique identifiable characteristics in a fingerprint. A ridge that forms and doesn't go anywhere, just forms into a dot. Then there's a short ridge. That's where you're going to see where it abruptly starts and where it abruptly ends. An ending ridge is where you don't see where it starts, but you see where it abruptly ends. A bifurcation would be a ridge that runs for a distance and then splits into 2 ridges. And a ridge island would be a ridge that runs for a distance, splits into 2 ridges, a short distance later comes back into 1 ridge again. Now everybody has those unique identifiable characteristics in their fingers. Once I've got the pattern type and the ridge flow consistent, and I start looking at the unique identifiable characteristics in the latent lift, if I've got a dot two solid ridges, and a bifurcation that is opening toward the right, and I go down to the known impression, I must have that dot, two bifurcations, and two solid ridges and a bifurcation that open to the right. So all the unique identifiable characteristics must be in the same relationship on the latent and the inked impression. And at that point in time, you can say, yes, that person did make the print, or no, that person did not make the latent print.
May I first witness? Mr. Navarro, I'm showing you what's been already entered into evidence as State's Exhibit T1, T2, and then what's been pre-marked into evidence as State's Exhibit U. Have you had an opportunity to review T1, T2, and U prior to today?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as T1 and T2, are those considered the latent prints?
Yes, ma'am. These are the latent prints. These are images of the latent prints that were processed with a chemical, and since it can't be lifted with a piece of tape and put onto a print card or a lift card, it has to be photographed to make a permanent record of the impression as it appeared on that piece of evidence. This would be a paper type item, so it was treated with a chemical. The chemical went in, reacted to the fingerprint, caused the fingerprint to become visible, and it was scanned into the computer.
And then as far as State's Exhibit U, pre-marked as State's Exhibit U, do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
How do you recognize it?
State's Exhibit number U are the fingerprints of Summers that I took on 5/7 of 19 in this case.
Did you come to court to take those of Mr. Summers?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see Mr. Summers in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please point to him and describe what he is wearing?
He's wearing a looks like a gray type sweater or top.
Your Honor, would you please let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant? And so, Mr. Navarro, did you compare the prints that you took of Mr. Summers? Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. I'll strike that question. And at this time, Mr. Navarro, are the prints that you rolled of State's Exhibit U in the same or substantially same condition as when you rolled them back in May of 2019?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
At this time, the State would move into evidence State's Exhibit U.
Mr. Summers, any objection to you? No, Your Honor. You will be admitted.
Mr. Navarro, do you then compare those prints that you took of Mr. Summers, being the known prints, to the latent prints in T1 and T2?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And were you able to make an identification?
Yes, ma'am. In State's Exhibit number T1 contained one latent fingerprint of value for identification purposes. Comparing it to the fingerprints in State's Exhibit U, I was able to identify the right thumbprint of Mr. Summers.
And if I could, Mr. Navarro, I'll retrieve those so I can put them on the Elmo. And so we're looking at T1. The print that has an arrow pointing to it, is that the thumbprint that you identified?
That is correct.
Okay, and then if we're looking at State's Exhibit U, you said it was the right thumbprint?
That is correct.
Okay, and are you putting the latent print side by side of the known prints when you are conducting your observations?
Yes, what I will do is I will take and I will fold the latent print in such a manner that I fold right next to it, and then I'm able to place that right next to the finger that I want to compare it with. I put a 4-power magnifier on top of both of them, and I look at the latent or the inked. I look at the unique identifiable characteristics, and I note the position of those unique identifiable characteristics to each other.
And then in regards to State's Exhibit T2, what known print of Trevor Summers were you able to identify in State's Exhibit T2?
T2 contained 2 latent fingerprints of value for identification purposes. In other words, it was placed down 2 times in the same area, and I was able to identify the left thumbprint of Mr. Summers as making both of those latent fingerprints of value.
And again, are those identified by the little arrows that we see towards the bottom of the photograph at the end, or bottom where we would have the ruler?
That is correct. That's pointing to each of the latent fingerprints that I noted of value and identified.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Absolutely.
The State will pass witness.
Cross-examination, Mr. Summers?
Sure. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Navarro.
Good afternoon.
Can you
Morning.
tell me what the state provided you with to analyze?
The crime scene processed some evidence. I didn't do the processing. Once they noted that there was rich detail on some papers, they downloaded those images into a computer we call VeraPic. Now, I can go into VeraPic and I can bring up those images. I cannot alter the image that's in VeraPic originally. I can retrieve it and I can process that. But the one that's in there from crime scene cannot be altered or changed in any way, form, or fashion. So I retrieve the images processed by crime scene, and those I was able to make my comparison from those and do all the markings that I needed to do.
Okay. Mr. Navarro, do you remember what was in, is it a folder in VeraPic?
In the computer system,
Yes, is it a folder?
it's in a file system. It's under the sheriff's office file number, which in this case would have been 2017 176699. The VeraPic images would have been in that sheriff's office case number, and I retrieve it from there.
Okay. Do you recall what was in that file that you had to, what images or what exactly was in that file? Can you give us an inventory?
I don't remember how many images were in that file. I went through all the images in the file and only retrieved those that contained information that I could examine. If it didn't have any ridge detail, or if the ridge detail was not of quality, then I didn't retrieve it. I didn't print it out. Only those that were of value.
Okay. And so you did not receive any original items, and you did not receive any original items?
I received latent lifts other than what we have been testifying to so far. We've been testifying to the images from VeraPic. I also received an envelope that was processed by Becker that these images were processed with fingerprint powder. Tape was put over the top of them, lifted, and then put onto a lifting card.
Okay, so you did receive some physical evidence as well.
I do have some latent prints on those that are of value for identification purposes.
Okay. Did you receive any originals of the documents that you were taking the lifts from?
The documents, the paper items, I never received the paper items. I only had the after processing.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, it was Mr. Becker that did the lifts for you? That did the processing?
Yes, Mr. Becker did the chemical processing and also did the lifts.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Read the record.
Procedure. Mr. Navarro, when you're looking at, in this case, when in VeraPic, looking at the files that were uploaded, you indicated that some were of value. What does that mean?
Now, in the VeraPic, all latent prints of value were identified.
Okay.
In the powdered lifts, the ones that Becker lifted with fingerprint powder, there are prints of value in that envelope that did not belong to Mr. Summers and have never been identified.
Okay, but what do you mean by of value?
Of value means there's a sufficient amount of information in it and sufficient detail that if I had a known set of inked impressions that I would be able to identify those latent prints. These latent prints that were powder processed were searched through the local automated fingerprint identification system. They were searched through the state automated fingerprint identification system, and they were searched through the federal automated fingerprint identification system, and no identifications were made on any of them.
Mr. Navarro, if the latent prints were considered to be of no value, do you further analyze those?
No, once I make my examination, visual examination, before I make my comparison, if that ridge detail or that whatever's on there does not contain a sufficient amount of information, it's finished. I've come to a conclusion that it's of no value. I cannot identify it. Doesn't make any difference whose fingerprints I have. There's not enough information there to either identify or eliminate that print.
And then lastly, Mr. Navarro, did the lead detective in this case provide you with known prints of the homeowner, Elisa Summers, or any of her children?
Best that I remember, I did not receive any fingerprints from anybody else to compare in this case.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have nothing further.
May this witness be released by the state
Yes.
and by the defense?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. You may be released as a witness at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Deputy Estea, the lunch is not there yet, right? But it'll be there shortly. They're going to go pick it up at 12. Let me ask Ms. Johnson, in order to maximize efficiency, I don't mind letting you call your next witness. I don't suspect we'll be able to finish the next witness before the lunch gets here, though.
I actually think we might.
Okay.
I have
Then
to
let's
recall
call
one witness with about 3
your
questions
next
to
witness.
ask.
Call
We
your
would
next witness.
recall Arden Summers.
Arden Summers.